Hi, everybody. Again, just an honor to be doing this show during such a challenging, historically challenging time for all of us. Whatever country you're in, all over the world. Kannaway is all over the world now, whether it's Japan or it's in Europe or it's South America, and we're, of course, in the United States. We've had some of the finest athletes and champions last month that helped us evoke the true Olympic spirit, what unites all of us. But I have one of my favorite people, probably anywhere, a man who's done 3,000 talks, 2,000 business consultations, written 22 books, and he's good looking. I mean, what else can you say? We have James Malinchak, one of the most respected speakers on the planet. And I thought that this time, Kannaway Sports and Kannaway Champions is going to absolutely use sports analogies. James is close friends with people like Super Bowl champion quarterback Joe Theismann, who I was lucky enough to have hold for me back with the Washington Redskins, now Washington Football Club, whatever that means. But we're really going to focus on business and helping your business. So, James, such an honor. What I love about you and my personal experience with you is exactly how we ended our interview with John Neighbor, about integrity, about doing things the right way, about doing what you say and saying what you do. I mean, making sure that you're congruent in all those things. So just really honored to have you on the show today.
Oh, my pleasure, man. You and I have become fast friends, and you've become one of my favorite people on the planet. So anything I can do to maybe just sprinkle some stuff in, I'm happy to do, brother.
Well, you were a basketball player, but I thought we might start with sports, which is, as a basketball player, you learned a lot of things, which you then immediately applied in how you got recruited. I mean, you sent out letters. I've never, ever in my life, ever seen determination like James Malinchak to make sure that at least one college got you a scholarship. Tell us about that. You grew up in a small town in Ohio.
Yeah. I grew up in a very tiny steel mill town, and we didn't have much. It was about 6,000 people. Mom was a lunch mother working at the school serving lunches to us kids, and Dad was a railroad conductor hauling scrap and putting trains back on the track when they derailed. So it wasn't like we came from anything. But I had this dream and desire to live my big first dream, which was to get a basketball scholarship. But my problem, Nick, was, I was in this tiny little steel mill town. Nobody knew about me. Nobody heard about me. I was a pretty good player in our area and in Western Pennsylvania. But
very good player.
Yeah, I was okay. I was what you call a gym rat. You'll appreciate this, right? I was a gym rat. When the kids were hanging out at the pool in the summer, I was in the gym working on not my weaknesses, my areas of improvement, because a weakness is only a weakness if you choose to give up on it, let it be a weakness. So I would all over town with my right hand tied behind my back, dribbling the ball with my left hand because I needed to improve it. I'd be in the gym doing wall jumps for hours, try to increase my vertical leap, just trying to be better, right? But I still had this problem. Nobody knew about me, right? And I have this old line: if they don't know about you, they can't buy from you. So back then, my mindset was, if they don't know about me, they can't give me a scholarship. So here's what I did. And I don't know why. I mean, people ask me all the time, as a high school kid, how in the heck did you think like this? I have no idea. I seriously can't figure out why I even did this. It just made logical sense to me. So what I did was I contacted the NCAA, and back then you could buy a book. It was about this thick. Now everything's online. But it gave me every single Division I, II, and III, as long as they were in the NCAA, basketball coach, football coach. I mean, it gave everybody. And so I went through that book and I highlighted 250 roughly Division I college basketball coaches because I wanted to play Division I ball. And my thought was, well, I got to let them know about me. So we played games on Tuesdays and Fridays. So every Wednesday and Saturday, I would get the newspaper from our small town. And I was a pretty good player in our area, so I was always in the paper. And I would cut out the clipping of our game. My mom would get a whole roll of nickels and tons of nickels, and would take me to the public library, and I would stand there and I would make 250 copies, and I would handwrite a letter to all 250 coaches every Wednesday and every Saturday, mailing them the clippings of my games my junior year.
I can see 20. I can maybe see 50. But 250, that would take a week just to do it. And what's going through your head? Because I want you all that are listening and watching this to think about what is the discipline that would be boring, but you will do it because it will make you better, and you will do it because it will create one opportunity, one person that might change your life. Tell us what's going through your head, because no one gets that at 18 years of age.
Well, there were three things. Number one, I said, look, I'm not the quickest ball player. I'm not the fastest. I'm not the most talented with God-given agility, if you will. So I had three things. I decided, it was probably my 8th or 9th grade in school, I decided that I was going to live on three things. It was going to be my foundation. Number one, you might be quicker than me, but you are not going to outwork me. I'll be in that gym all summer long. I'll be in there after school. I used to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I was at the gym every morning, 6 a.m. before school started for 3 years straight. I never missed one day, not one day. So you're not going to outwork me. Number two is I'm going to have discipline and consistency, right? And number three, I'm committing to my dream and to myself. And my whole thing, that's what I lived on. I lived on, you're not going to outwork me. I'm going to have consistency, and I'm going to discipline myself to keep doing it again and again. And I just went blank. The third one, I just said it.
Yourself and your dream.
Yeah, because I'm going to commit to it. Commitment. A lot of people don't, they say they want to do stuff, Nick, but they won't commit to it. I mean, I'm not saying like talking out loud about it. I'm talking in your heart, your soul, your spirit, man. Like, I'm going to do this thing. Like when Cortez invades Spain, he burns the ships, right? Because you got to succeed. And so for me, there was no turning back. My mentality was, you're not going to beat me. You have to kill me to beat me. That's how committed I was. And I don't know why as an 18-year-old, but that's what it was. It was those three things: hard work, discipline, consistency, and commitment. And that's what allowed me to write those letters every Wednesday and every Saturday and go mail them out. And I used to work picking up spaghetti plates as a side job at the local restaurant so I could make money for stamps.
You know, but part of that also is just finding a way to love the work. When I talk to kids, I say, here's the deal. Most kids do not know how to focus. They don't know how to focus for more than a few seconds at a time, whether it's TikTok or Instagram or, whatever it is. They can't do it. They need to have somebody reinforce them and kiss their butts and hug them and let them know it's okay. And for me, it's that loving the hard work. So I say, kids, if you can learn right now, this is the classroom of your life. If you can learn to focus when you are tired, when you're exhausted, and when you're bored, when there's nothing to stimulate your creativity and yet tap into that creativity, which is right part of your spiritual health as well, then you will always have the extra edge. As Amy Van Dyken said a few weeks ago, she lost out being on the Olympic team when she was in high school, very young, 14, by 1/100th of a second.
Wow.
The woman that she beat, who was the world record holder from China, she beat by 1/100th of a second. The difference between a gold medalist, a champion, and an also-ran is 1/100th of a second. It's 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10%. But if you're James Malinchak and you're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're going to the gym at 6 a.m., that little tiny minuscule percent begins to build on itself. It builds character. It builds the dendrites and the structures in the brain to be more resilient, to bring more oxygen and blood so that somehow when you're exhausted, you still push through in the fourth quarter, the 2-minute drill, and it's done.
Well, it's the compound effect, right? I always say yard by yard success is hard, inch by inch it's a cinch, because it just keeps growing, right? Inches grow into feet, yards, etc. So you just have those tiny little momentum builders, and it just builds and it creates a compound effect. By the way, good or bad, right? If you're doing negative stuff, that compound effect still happens, right? If you have negative self-talk, if you're hanging out with the wrong people, if you're letting people say things to you and you're taking them to heart, that all builds as well. So it's not just the positive builds. But, I want to share something. I love what you were saying about Amy. I always say this in my talks. You take two horses running a race. The horse that comes in first place by a nose wins $10 million. The horse that comes in second place by a nose wins 500 grand. Big difference in the payoff, right? But when you really break it down, what's really the difference? The horse that got the big payoff was just that much better, man. Just better by a nose, right? And I always say the only difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that little extra, the EXTRA that comes before the word ordinary. Getting back to the mailing out the letters, my friend Kevin Eastman, he used to coach with Doc Rivers down with the LA Clippers in the NBA and with the Celtics before that. And he retired and he went and did speaking full time. But Kevin's a really good friend of mine. Had him speak many times at my events. And he wrote a great book. It's called Why the Best for the Best. And one of the things that Kevin found from working with Kobe and Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan and LeBron, all these guys that wear Nike, because he's also a consultant for Nike, is of course they work hard, right? That's a given. Yep. But the best of the best do the unrequired work. I mean, that's what you did, brother. That's what you did. Cut by, 11 times by 8 NFL teams, and you're doing that unrequired work. You're in there, you're kicking, you're doing whatever. You're mentally getting focused to where you become one of the greatest of all time. It's not that you have to work. Of course you got to work, but it's the unrequired work that makes you great.
Malcolm Gladwell coined the phrase, and others did, I'm sure, too, the habit of 10,000 hours. Because the brain, when you do that much work, for you, it's about 10 million hours. But we'll start with 1,000 hours. That's when the brain's repetitive memory begins to feed into the part of the brain that has to do with intuitive, comfort level, thoughtless performance. It is the essence of the flow when Michael Jordan, or let's say Stephen Curry, where they hit like 6 3-pointers from like 40 feet, not even 25 feet.
Or Nick Lowery kicking, man.
In a row, and then 21 in a row. Only guy that's ever done that 2 consecutive years, and then 22 for 24. And that was part of Tony Robbins also, the work I did, which was simply those tapes, not a seminar so much as his tapes, where I had to do the work and set my goals and then work them, loving that work and realizing that if I put my brain in that state, that I didn't have to worry about criticism and external stimuli, because I believe this war, it's a spiritual war, not just a financial economic war, not just a political war. It's a spiritual war that we are all confronting right now. We have to guard ourselves and allow the spirit, the intelligence, the natural wisdom. I believe God in us as well. We have to channel that. We cannot allow the distractions. For me, it would be 11 very large people averaging 6'6" with 38-inch arms and a 38-inch vertical leap. They could jump almost 11 and a half feet. I couldn't just be accurate. I had to kick above them. It was not the referee. It was not the wind. It was not the crowd. It was not the guy in the stands yelling obscenities at me from 30 feet away. I had to simply trust and love the discipline I had developed, just like James Malinchak mailing off 250 letters every single week. That's one of the greatest stories, because everyone watching this program, the hero is not the hero who needs a million people. The hero is the person behind the scenes that's mailing off 250 letters that no one cares about. No one cared about James Malinchak. And then finally, we didn't finish that story, did we?
No.
Finally, somebody did. So let's get back to that for 2 seconds, because I want to say there's an end to that, which is the one that you can say it's God, it's destiny, it's something you created. But tell us what happened in the end that got you that college scholarship.
Well, it was amazing, because all of a sudden I started getting letters and phone calls from Duke, Arizona, DePaul, Georgetown, and John Thompson. John Thompson and Georgetown came to my high school to watch me play. UCLA, UNLV. I mean, it was what's that?
That's huge. And by the way, most of the guys on John Thompson's teams were had a little bit more tan.
Yeah.
A tall white guy. From that. I'm not saying it's just the way it is. Some teams have patterns of where they get their players. John Thompson going to your small town would never, ever, ever have happened without you reaching out. And you know what? If I'm the coach, every week I'm getting this mail with an Ohio stamp on it from this kid. Who's this kid? I mean, I bet you initially he just ignored it.
Oh, sure.
Second week he ignored it. But about the 4th or 5th week, he's like, who is this kid? I'm going to open up this letter and see who he is. There's something special about him, and the coach loves that. A coach loves that player that will do whatever is asked of him or her. A coach, and who else loves that? A boss.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, it will pay the price. That's what John Neighbor was talking about. Always pay the price. They said when they went to Spain and Barcelona for the Olympics, they had a saying, no pain, no Spain. Tell us about that and how you now in your life, taking that victory because of the small, incredibly wise devotions you had in high school. How does that apply to you today?
Oh my gosh. I still live by that. I got my first job even out of college doing the same thing. I wanted to work as a stockbroker with Merrill Lynch, and I used to mail letters for 7 months leading up to graduation, and I had professors mailing letters on my behalf. I mean, I just pretty much, you know, if you wanted to attack a country, what's the best way? Land, air, or sea? D, all the above. You just surround them, right? And I just surrounded them with so much good, positive references and mail from me that here was really the, people said, well, what were you hoping to accomplish back when you were mailing those high school letters or even to get your first job? And even today when you do mass mailings, like I've mailed 50,000 mail pieces to get business, right? 50,000 mail pieces now, larger scale. But what's the thought? Here's my thought, right? My thought was always this. If I read something a long time ago, in order to turn a cold person into somebody who buys from you, literally cold into a buyer, you have to hit them 6 to 7 times over a concentrated period of time. So what I was trying to do was basically hit them 6 or 7 times to get that warming period, which is the same thing you got to do in business today. But then I also thought, you know what? I want them to look at my stuff and say, I never heard of this kid before. Man, maybe we have a diamond in the rough that nobody else knows about. Same thing when I was coming out and trying to get a job. Who is this kid? He's a
guy.
Yeah. And so same thing today, like when I do like a training, a speaker training, and I have 500 people flying from around the world, you know how I got them was because I've been mailing to them for years, you know, so you get something from me and you're like, I never heard of this guy before. But God darn, he's always in my face, and he just will not quit. Maybe I ought to go check him out.
Yeah, but I would also say that there's some people that are like steamrollers with no touch. And let's distinguish. You had a touch. There's a human accessible quality. Anybody that's watching right now, see, there's a human being there. You're not a robot. Some public speakers are great. They have a system. They're awesome. But what separates you that makes you just a little bit better, that 1/100th of a second better, is there's a human being in there too. How did you convey that when it's 50,000 pieces of mail? Because I want you all to listen to this, because as you're reaching out for Kannaway, as you're reaching out for your family and for your financial and economic success during a very challenging time, you got to convey that there's a real person. Yeah. How do you do that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I've spoken for like a lot of network marketing companies, a lot of sales professionals, a lot of entrepreneur groups. And I always say, look, you can't get hung up on the product, the company, or the service, because nobody buys a product or company or service. They buy you. They buy human beings. We buy relationships. We buy, you know, I like this guy. I like this lady. You know, she understands where I am right now. He understands what I'm going through. There's a heart-to-heart connection. I call it the bridge to people's hearts. You know, that's how you bridge into people's hearts. So many people want to get caught up on data, statistics. I always give this analogy when I speak. I say, you look at an iceberg, right? And you've got the part above the water, right? And everybody only sees that part, but that's just 10% of the iceberg. 90% of the iceberg is below the water. So 10% of how you should be approaching folks is with their head, logical, company stats, data, etc. The 90% below the water is the heart, emotion. And this is where if you study anything about the subconscious mind, this is where all buying decisions are made, below the water emotionally. Right? So when you got to understand that you're dealing with a person, like we're talking right here, but I know that there is somebody watching this who's sitting, you know, somewhere in the world who's going through a tough time. Maybe they had a physical situation, they had a health situation, they had a job situation. So I never lose focus, Nick, that I'm not talking to a screen. I'm talking to human beings sitting somewhere in the world, probably with their little boy or little girl on their lap. And that's what I want people to really understand. When I do like a podcast or something, or when I'm talking about a company or I'm talking to a person, man. These are people with feelings. These are people that, if I believe a lot of people have their hope tank on E. And if you will simply just approach people with, I'm here to fill up people's hope tank and give them some, paint a brighter future for them and help them and serve them and uplift them, you should have no problem connecting with people. And by the way, I'll just say this last thing, as a cherry on top, when you connect, you collect.
Yeah. Well, let me just say this, it's an analogy, not from the business world, but my Champions for the Homeless. We did it the first couple of years, and I had these huge football players. I had to wear their jerseys sometimes. The jerseys were a little tight. I mean, guys that are 6'4", 290, 300, and now 6'4", 350. But they would wear them, and we would welcome 1,000 to 1,200 homeless people in, and we'd give flowers. We'd have the ladies hand out the flowers. We tried the guys handing out the flowers. It didn't feel it's being misogynistic. And we had music. The next year, 3 of the players came up to me and said, is it okay if I bring my kid? Because I brought my kid last year, and they said I had to let them come this year because they had never felt so much power and love to help somebody. And here they were 6 and 8 and 10 and 12. And you don't think that matters to me when you said that person out there listening to this with a kid on their lap. Right?
Yeah, 100%.
The father, mother, Marianne getting emotional. It's that real that what we believe is so important, our children will absorb. It won't be the 10% so much of the intellectual. It will be how they feel and how we made them feel. And so when we have our children, when the children are so inspired, they've never felt power to help a stranger in their life, let alone a strange adult. And so now we've grown from 25 large football players, a few musicians, to 500 volunteers. And you know what it's like when you go from 25 people handing out food and flowers and music to 500 people, every one of them saying, you're just as important as I am. Today's your day. This is your dining room table. How are you, sir? Some of them have said, no one's called me sir in so long, I don't even remember what that's like. Some of them say, I've never felt, we had this man 5 years ago said, I just moved here. I've never felt so much love.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
So
I try to
that connection of generations, that's when we're taking an individual, paradigm to you perceiving and understanding the impact is like those, it's not even ripples at this point. It's huge tidal waves of wisdom and love, which go into the cellular memory of your children and the people around you. And they want that. They crave that for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had people that I have a little personal thing that I do. It's just something I decided a long time ago where I tell people that I'm proud of them. That's my line. Brother, I'm proud of you, or man, I'm proud of you, or I'm so proud. Nick, I have had people, I kid you not, 20 years later, when I've spoken at their event, 20 years later, they've reached out, reconnected with me on LinkedIn or Facebook or something like that. And I literally have folks that send me a message and say, you probably don't remember this, James, but you spoke at my college back 20 years ago. And afterwards, you spent time talking to me, out in the hallway, and I told you something I was going through. You helped me through it, and I felt good about getting through it. And you told me you were proud of me for getting through it. Do you know that I have never forgotten that, because nobody in the last 20 years has said they were proud of me? It just blows my mind. Blows my mind. So that's my little thing. I just like to tell people I'm proud of them, because I am, man. If you don't quit, if you do things you've never done before, if you take it to whatever it is, you can always find something to be proud of people for.
And this is creating that bigger family that we're all about. So, James, I love where we're going with this, because, in the end, what else do we have if it isn't a legacy? You know,
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story I had, because when we put each of these out, so each of those letters was a seed. Each of those 250 letters every single week in high school on Wednesdays and Saturdays was a seed. We put out, this is the way I feel, we put out seed after seed after seed after seed after seed after seed. We just keep putting out angel dust. We keep putting it out. It's not up to us. It won't be what we expect. It will always be God's timing. It will always be on its own time frame, but it will happen because you keep putting it out there. So 1988, I'd started a program. Oh man, it was adult role models for youth in Kansas City, and I got all the athletes. I got the Sacramento Kings were still there. I was working with Mayor Berkeley, the mayor of Kansas City. We got the Comets, the indoor soccer team. We got the Royals, and we got the Chiefs. And every of them, Derek Thomas was with me, the late great. He got it, which is cool because it was his rookie year. So it was 89, actually. And we just said all of the athletes in the city will devote 2 hours once a month. Because everybody could say, you know, I can do that. And that grew and grew and grew to 38 youth serving agencies.
Wow.
And then we got $2 500,000 grants from the One-to-One and the Millionaire Foundation. And it grew to 20,000 children, 3,000 volunteers. So here's my point. I'm sitting at the Westin Crown Center in Kansas City, Sunday brunch after the 101 banquet. My friend I had brunch with leaves, and I'm sitting there for a few minutes quietly thinking about my day. And a guy in a sweatshirt who'd been sitting 2 tables over comes over to me once my friend leaves and says, hey, do you mind if I sit with you just for a minute? I said, sure. He goes, you're not going to remember me, but 20 years ago, you and Kevin Ross, who is a star on our team, who's now an NFL coach, you and Kevin Ross spoke to our team. And I've never forgotten what it felt like. I've never forgotten your message. I'll never forget how I felt hope. I felt there was still something to happen. My mother was in prison. My father was nowhere. I didn't know my father. But that gave me hope, and that made me say, I'm going to do something in my own way. He said, I bought now an entire block. I started with one house, and they are halfway houses, first for my mother when she got out of prison, then for other prisoners. And now there's an entire block in Kansas City of houses I have bought, which provide a way for people that no one will hire, which is another subject all its own. When you've served your time and then no one will hire you, what's going to happen to you with the prison population? That's crazy to me. But having said that, what did he do? He didn't just say, oh, I want to help those people. Isn't that nice? He didn't just march in a parade, which is, you know, it's okay. But he absolutely said, I'm going to do something that changes the furniture in the society itself. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to buy another house, an entire block, with 10 people in each house, and each of them now has a place that they call a home after being in prison. Each of them now has hope. And that started with a couple pro athletes simply saying, you know, I can make 2 hours a month. Actually, we probably did a couple a month, but still, I can make time for that. And what does that do? And that brings back into us the chance to remind ourselves of what matters. That's the thing. You're a public speaker, James, but you're a coach. You realize that your role on this earth is to inspire people so that you're proud of them. Yeah. And that is such a magic. So what I'm giving you, and what James is giving you even better than me today, is these lessons apply for everything we'll do our whole life. Everything that really matters. These are the things when we're 80, we're 85, and we're 90. We'll still value, we'll never regret. So remember these lessons because, yeah, they absolutely have to do with enduring and overcoming and finding financial success and business success. But it's also creating that family around us, some of which we may never see for 20 years. Some we'll never see the rest of our lives. But some will come back to us and remind us and reinforce us that we made them proud of themselves. Mm-hmm. God bless you for that message, brother.
Oh, man. And you know what? And you do to just do. You don't do hoping that like somebody tells you about it, you know, down the line, right? We do good just to do good, right? And that's what I want everybody to really grasp on. You know, if you just wake up and think about walking around with, I always do this in my talks. I'm going to do it here. This is not a real nap. I usually have a very nice cloth napkin. This is like a Bounty paper towel, but this is all I got. When we are born and we come into this world, we get a bib placed under our chin. And if you study anything about the subconscious mind, you know that what gets embedded in your subconscious mind at a young age, you carry with you your entire life unless you change the programming, right? So we get this embedded into our subconscious, meaning this, that people serve us, people give to us, right? As an infant, people are giving and taking care of us. The problem, once that seed gets embedded into the subconscious, we unconsciously take that with us our whole lives. And we tend to run around like this. That's why, like, you see somebody that, you know, you meet at a function and you think that there's a way that, like, you could work with them, and you run up to them and you slam them with a business card. Well, that's being a taker. That's saying, hey, I only care about you because I think you could somehow help me. Think about that. So here's what I always say. If you really want to make an impact, you really want to get in with a lot of people, you want to get coaches to be interested in you when you're mailing out letters, you want to make a difference in the lives of others, you must take that bib off from around your neck, and you must always drape it over your forearm like you are a server in the finest dining establishment on the planet. And you wake up every day and you go through life with, how can I serve people? How can I help people? What can I do to brighten their days? I've been doing that for 20 some years in my talks, that little analogy of the bib versus the napkin. I can't tell you how many folks have come up to me and said, man, that has been the most impactful business strategy, life strategy, financial strategy that I've ever heard. And I always remember it, James, because I remember, don't wear the bib, wear the napkin and serve. Just wake up and serve.
And you know, when we have all of these often very correct, you know, observations about male-female relationships and marriages, et cetera, potential marriages, very often when I listen to people, there's a very high rate of divorce here in Scottsdale where I live. They've forgotten how beautiful it is to serve each other. And it's hard, you know, so many hurt feelings as well. But the great relationships, once again, starting with the 250 letters, you know, is just serving and serving some more, and beautiful things happen. I cook dinner, I cook my famous swordfish and salmon, which I'm going to have to cook sometime. By the way, what I tell people is, everybody, if you want me to cook, I'll cook for you, okay? I will cook for you. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I'll cook for you. You will have to sign an affidavit that you promise not to follow me around like a puppy dog the rest of your life. But, you know, that cooking for your friends, that's just one example of the flavors of life. And because that creates an environment where you each are, you know, opening yourselves up to great conversation, to an atmosphere of sharing the food of life, sharing the blessings of life too. So,
well, serve, you know, think about how easy it is to serve, right? It could be telling somebody you're proud of them. It could be you organizing, hey, man, let's go get these athletes just 2 hours, man, just 2 hours a month. And look what that builds into. It could be as simple as you and I talking, and you're like, hey, James, could you do the interview an hour and a half later? Yeah, man, absolutely. Just minor. It does. People think serving like it has to be this big, grandiose thing. No, it's smiling at someone. When I run every morning here, I'm in my house in South Florida, and I run every morning. And I have a thing that I do every morning. It's my own personal thing that I'm going to smile, wave, and say hi to everybody I see. I believe I'm serving them. They may have not have had anybody smile at them today or a week, right? So it could be the minor little thing. And it's amazing how, like, it's funny now, like some of the folks, I'll see them, like, because they're consistent runners or bikers, and I'm out there, and like, they are so excited when they see me, like, come around the corner, because they know I'm going to smile. I'm going to, like, wave and go, hey, Nick, how you doing today, man? Good morning. Right? It's just my little thing. That's serving. So we can serve in the tiniest little ways that can make the biggest difference for people.
And also, you're not expecting anything in return.
No. Oh, sometimes I'll say it, and somebody will just keep running, and it doesn't matter. I did my job. My job is to give and serve. It's not to dictate how people receive it.
Yeah. Beautiful stuff. What I try to do is, particularly with elderly, because I believe the elderly are so forgotten in our society today. My brother,
I agree.
The living facility, and you see people that, the families hardly ever come to see. So I try to especially reach out to them. But, you're exactly right. It's those little things. If we lose sight that it isn't just the big gestures, it isn't just the champions for the homeless, the champions for the fall.
Yeah.
It's also just the small things. I think.
Well, and just always remember, you never know who has their hope tank on E that day.
Yeah. And another thing that's interesting, looking at athletes and the situations we're in, I try to talk to my buddies that are playing now and just say, every time somebody asks for an autograph, you can't sign everyone. I get it. You can only do the best you can. But somebody like Patrick Mahomes gets it already. And it's that if you take that 15 seconds to sign that autograph, maybe it's 30 seconds, they will never, ever forget that you took time for them. And if you don't, they will never.
Oh, yeah.
And you didn't take time for them.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful thing. I mean, that is another part of those things we're talking about, because people will come back later and say, yeah, remember you signed an autograph for me. I was the one wearing red in the Chiefs parking lot. I'm thinking, yeah, I'm with you. But it's still so cool. And so
well, hey, Nick, you know how we spell love in this world, right? You know how we spell love? It's not L-O-V-E, it's T-I-M-E. How much time do you spend with folks? That's what people remember, whether it's 10 seconds. Well, I don't care if you are the biggest star on the planet, when you stop in 10 seconds and look at somebody in the eye and just say, hey, nice shirt, or hey, thanks for coming out to the game, or yeah, let me sign that for you, or let's do a selfie. I mean, man, that may be the hope that somebody needed, right? You don't spell love L-O-V-E, it's T-I-M-E.
And the part of that, also some people like to put it as the idea of being present. Let's talk about that. When you have 500 people coming to your seminar, when you have 1,000 people on a Zoom call you're doing, when you have all these other actions to take place, plus having your girlfriend or your wife or your family or your children, all these other things, how do you remain present in each of those different circumstances? How do you practice the art of being present? Because I'm going to admit to a fault of mine. When I look back at my career in Kansas City, I remember a lot of great things, but I don't remember all of them. And that hurts me. And I realized that maybe because I was caught up in the moment, maybe because there was some fear and this tension, all the expectations of being the one of the players that they could depend on, and the kicker's such a rare thing. But I also think, to be honest, when I have my moments of honesty with myself, I think maybe I wasn't always present. Because I think when we're present, we tend more to value what's happening and then remember what's happening. So tell me, James Malinchak, one of the great people and speakers I've ever met, what is, in your mind, the art of being present in the midst of a highly intense, crazy, fast world?
The only thing I can do, and this is what I try to share with folks, is stuff that has worked for me. So I'm going to share something that's worked for me. I learned this from a mentor 20-some years ago. The mentor, my cousin, Bill Malinchak, that used to play in the NFL as well.
One of the great special teams players. He could block a punt, he could block a field goal, turn around the Redskins, now named the Washington Football Club. And disclaimer, James Malinchak, his cousin, was one of the great special teams players. By the way, what a great example of a servant, because he wasn't the offensive star, the defensive star, but he made the most of that often forgotten position. Tell us about him.
Yeah. So he's always been my mentor. He's worth a lot of money. Let's just put it that way, a lot of money. And never forgot where he came from. But here's the lesson. I was always like his student. He just took a liking in me from the same small steel mill town, and I think he saw a lot of me a lot of him in me, if you will. Like I sort of was coming up the way he was coming up, and he loved my chutzpah and my hustle. And so he would always give me these pearls of wisdom. And one of the great pearls of wisdom that allow me to be present, if you will, is he would always say, as you go through life, I know this is going to be hard because there's fast pace and things moving, but try to stop and remember to invest in memories. So if somebody says something really nice to you, take a second and absorb that in, make that a memory in your mind, because that's all we have as we go through life. Cars, money, all that stuff comes and goes, but the memory that you have that you've actually, made a difference in someone's life, or the memory that you have when you achieved something and you felt awesome for climbing that mountain. So many people with the fast pace of life, they don't take the time to take a snapshot of it and invest in a memory. So I've just always remembered that. And I always, like today, right now, the honor of being on here is a memory for me that will be with me for the rest of my life, because I'm focusing on it to be a memory for the rest of my life. I'm not just jumping on another interview Zoom thingy, right? This is Kannaway Champions with Nick and all these great folks that could be watching with their little boys and little girls on their knees around the world. And this is a memory for me, man. I always just remember, I think one of the reasons why it's so important for me to take the snapshot is I never forget how I started out. And the way I started out when I got out of college was I was so broke, I used to make $7 an hour working in a video store, Montrose Video in Montrose, California, trying to pay my rent. And so I always remember where I started. I never forget that. Every day I wake up and I remember where I started. I'm from a small steel mill town also. So when I'm blessed to do something like this, it is a blessing for me. I see it differently, because I'm I could be still working in the video store. And here I am, this guy that gets to come on and share some ideas with somebody. And the other thing too, there was a time when I would be the person jumping on these types of Zooms or interviews or watching a TV show when I was down in the dumps. And I know what somebody who said something on here. You know what? I got to tell you this story, Nick, if you'll just let me tell it.
Do it.
Today is a very special day. Okay, we're recording this today on my sister Vicky's birthday, who passed away 20 years ago from cancer, from a brain tumor. And it goes appropriately with the question you asked, because when she passed away, or she was about to pass away, I never forget when I was told she had 3 months to live. And man, I went into a bad spiral. I went into a bad funk. I was mad at everybody. I was mad at God. How could this happen? My sister's the sweetest, nicest person on the planet, wouldn't harm a flea. And you got drug dealers out there killing kids with crack and things like that. Why my sister? I was just mad and just disgusted and just in a bad place. One day, call it a coincidence if you like. I believe things happen for a reason, and I believe it was a God thing. And I know people have different beliefs, but call it a coincidence if you like, but I turned on the television out of the blue. And on that day, on the station that was on when I turned the TV on, was a TV show called The Hour of Power. Yes. With Dr. Robert Schuler.
Yes.
Right? Glass the Crystal Cathedral. And so I remember sitting there, and I don't know why, but I just sat there and watched it. Now, call it a coincidence that show happened to be on that day, that channel, when I turned the TV on out of the blue. Why didn't I turn the TV on 2 hours later, right? And so Dr. Schuler was interviewing somebody that I'd never heard of before, and his name was Mark Victor Hansen, who created this brand new little book called Chicken Soup for the Soul something. So I'd never heard of it before. And he was talking about how many times they got rejected when they were trying, 144 times trying to get that book going. And Robert Schuler, Pastor Schuler, said something to me that I believe he wasn't saying to everybody, he was saying to me. He said, tough times don't last, tough people do. And man, it was that day, that time, that moment, and that is what I needed to hear, because that lifted my spirit, that shifted my mindset. That said, you know what, James, you got to be thankful for the 38 years you had Vicky on this planet. And you can't go through life, saying, why her? And you'll see her again. You got to be grateful and thankful for what you have. And that one line changed my entire life and pulled me up when I was at the worst of the worst. Tough times don't last, tough people do. Reason I wanted to share that was because we're doing this interview today and happens to be my sister's birthday. So,
well, Vicki, I know you're proud of your brother, and
Yeah.
We live our lives to honor the people that have been there for us. I think of when we were talking about being present and the memories you talked about, how we create memories in our lives, because that's what really matters.
Right.
That when I'm going through something now, I try to say, this moment, I'm going to need to remember this moment a week from now.
Yeah.
Or a year from now. And I'm going to see myself a year from now saying, I want to remember this time with James talking about his sister, Vicky. And then that literally, the brain then creates a file, a little bit like when we press file on the computer, but that reinforces a little bit deeper indentation in our memories framework. But it takes also realizing and making that being intentional. And
being intentional. Yeah.
It's being intentional. You're intentional for great reasons. What would you like to finish our talk with? What would be the thing now, where you are in your life now? You're not 25 years old anymore. You got out of college. And,
I'm 26.
Thank you. And so now, especially with COVID and all these things, we realize we all know somebody probably that's died. I mean, my dear friend who's a sports anchor for NBC, in Kansas City, his father-in-law died from COVID. We all know someone that did, and certainly that's had it, and hopefully many that have overcome it too. But life is short. We do not know how long we have. So as you look at the next 20 years of your career and your life and your loved ones, the legacy itself, what is going to be your priority to manage your success in a way where you feel like this fourth quarter, second half of your life really has, exactly what you'd like in it?
Wow, that's a great question, because I've been thinking about this a lot. I think when you're younger, you focus probably on income and business, and you're trying to grow stuff. You're trying to get a home. You're trying to get a car, different things, pay for things, right? And then I think you hit a certain age, and this is where I've come, where you move past the success growth, and you look into significance to where you have influence and impact. And that's where I am in my life. The next 20 years is, I have a big financial goal to raise $10 million to give away to charities. I mean, that's a big goal. It's just something I wanted to do because I thought, man, there's a lot of kids that need clean water with water wells. There are people who need food. There are people who need clothes. People who just don't. I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here. You've been doing this for a long time. But I thought, wouldn't that be cool? We could feed a lot of people. And I don't know how I came up with the $10 million number, but I want to generate $10 million in my business to give it away so I could help people who are less fortunate. That's my big goal.
Lisa and I are working now on a new app with our friends Dana and Linda called FunDuel. So for those of you that are listening, just keep an eye out for FunDuel. It's going to be a new way to raise money for the things you care about so that we continue. It's a grassroots style. It's using the selfie reinforcing technologies, but in a way that's not just self-centered. And it's fun. It's going to be competitive. But check out FunDuel. It's something that I'm working on. I'm proud to be part of that team because I think right now, once again, every chance we get, like right now with one of the great people I've ever met, James Malinchak, we can choose right now to feel sad, feel disempowered, feel fearful, feel like we can't do anything. So many things are just so strange right now, trying to understand it. Or we can choose to say, I will use my energy, my power every day to wave at that person who used to ignore me. Every time I come around the block now, they're smiling too. I'm going to choose my power to help one person every day. And if I choose that direction, there will always be a legacy of positive energy that will reinforce all the things that I love about life anyway.
Yeah. There's so much negativity and it's so easy to get caught up in that. And, that's what the media reports, because that's what, the old line, if it bleeds, it leads. Right? The old line, if the media was around when Jesus walked on water, the headlines in the morning would have said, Jesus can't swim. Right. So that's why we have to, put the throttle down, take a stand, to spread more positive. This is crazy, Nick. Just this morning when I was running, I thought, you know what? I don't know why. I believe God just told me that I need to do this, that I need to start a podcast that just spreads a lot of positive stuff in the world. So that's one of the things I'm working on right now. I got to work on it today. I've got a lot of friends who are big internet marketers who could blast it out, spread the word. And I really believe that, especially in this COVID time right now, that my small little part is I need to get this podcast going so that I can start spreading positiveness throughout the world and all this negative stuff that's going around.
Yeah. Well, we're going to finish with this thought. And then I want to have, one final comment from you, which is stop listening to the radio. Stop listening to the news. Put on your broadcast a podcast by James Malinchak or Kannaway Champions, whatever it is, someone that inspires you. Feed yourself every day, especially at the beginning of the day. If you want, prayer is a big part of it too, because it's directing everything, all your thoughts and energy in a productive, constructive way. And it's amazing. The more careful and clear and detailed that visualization is, the more the brain will say, I must make that happen. That's exactly what I had to do when I'm looking down at the ball. I'm visualizing the goalpost. I'm visualizing the lady with the very nice sweater between the goalposts with the bright colors that I'm going to have her catch it. The more vivid I see that, the more it will happen. So even though I'm looking down, which is looking at my office daily work and discipline, all these rituals you've talked about today, the more I can make that bigger purpose happen because it was so real here first. James Malinchak, you've been awesome today. Give us your final thoughts to leave for people wherever they are in the world today.
Yeah, so remember this, to make an impact, make a difference, to grow yourself, grow your family, grow your business. It's never about how much smarts you have. It's about how much heart you have.
Well, God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend.
That's been listening. I want to thank Kim Nunley and Lisa Nico, my awesome production crew here. They're amazing too. They're writing notes now so we can get highlights from this talk. This is going to be an awesome show. We're so happy. And I always have a tradition of leaving you with this thought. It's not the brightness of the spotlight. It's the intensity of the light within you that matters. Thanks again. Part of Kannaway Champions. James, we love you, brother.
Thank you for having me. I love you too, brother. Appreciate you.